Okay, Ba said. Second thing you gotta learn is how to keep your balance in a high wind. You gotta be good at this so you don't get blown into the polar bear dens. They put me in between them and started making me spin around and round. It seemed like they spun me for about a half an hour. When slobs started flying out of my mouth, they let me stop and I wobbled around for a while before they pushed me back in the same snowbank. When everything stopped again in circles, I got up and we all laughed again. They whispered some more and then Bi said, "What do you think, Buphead? He kept his balance a good long time. I'm going to give him an A minus." "I ain't as hard a grader as you. I'm going to give him a little punk a double A minus." "Okay, Kenny. Now the last part of surviving a blizzard. You ready?" "Yep." "You passed the wind test and did real good on the balance test, but now we got to see if you're ready to graduate. You remember what we told you was the most important part about surviving?" "Yep." "Okay, here we go. Buphead, tell him about the final exam." Buphead turned me around to look at him, putting me back to Brian. "Okay, Square," he started. "I want to make sure you're ready for this one. You done you done so good so far. I want to make sure you don't blow it at graduation time. You think you ready?" I nodded, getting ready to be thrown in the snowbank real hard this time. I made it my mind I wasn't going to cry or anything. I made it my mind that no matter how hard they threw me in that snow, I was going to get up laughing. "Okay," Buphead said. "Everything's cool. You remember what your brother said about putting your hands up? Like this?" I covered my face with my gloves. "Yeah, that's it." Buphead looked over my shoulder at Byron and then said, "Woo, high winds blowing snow. Woo, look out. Blizzard a coming, death around the corner, look out." Byron mumbled my name and I turned around to see why his voice sounded so funny. As soon as I looked at him, Byron blasted me in the face with a mouthful of snow. Man, it was hard to believe how much stuff By could put in his mouth. Him and Buphead just about died laughing as I stood there with snow and spit and ice dripping off my face. Byron caught his breath and said, "Oh man, you flunked. You done so good, then you go and flunk the blow and snow section of how to survive a blizzard. You forgot how to put your hands up. What you say, Buphead, F?" "Yeah, double F minus." It was a good thing my face was numb from the cold already, or I might have froze to death. I was too embarrassed about getting tricked to tell on them, so I went in the house and watched TV. So as me and Bai scraped the ice off the brown bomber, I wasn't going to get fooled again. I kept on chopping ice off the back window and ignored Bai's mumbling voice. The next time I took a little rest, Byron was still calling my name, but sounding like he had something in his mouth. He kept saying, "Key, key, key, hello." When he started banging on the door of the car, I went to take a peek of what was going on. Bai was leaned over the outside mirror, looking at something in it real close. Big puffs of steam were coming out of his side of the mirror. I picked up a big, hard chunk of ice to get ready for Byron's trick. "Key, key, help, help me. Go get Mama. Go get Mama. Hurry." "I'm not playing, Byron. I'm not that stupid. You better start doing your side of the car or I'll tear you up with this ice ball." He banged his head against the car harder and started stomping his feet. "Oh, please, can help me. Go get Mama." I raised the ice chunk over my head. "I'm not playing. Bye, you better get busy or I'm telling Dad." I moved closer, and when I got right next to him, I could see boogers running out of his nose and tears running down his cheeks. These weren't tears from the cold either. These were big, juicy crybaby tears. I dropped my ice a chunk. "Bye, what's wrong? Help, help me. I moved closer. I couldn't believe my eyes. Byron's mouth was frozen on the mirror. He was as stuck as a fly on flypaper. I could have done a lot of stuff to him. If it had been with me, my lips stuck on something like this, he'd have me tortured for a couple of days before he got help. Not me, though. I nearly broke my neck trying to get into the house to rescue Byron. As soon as I ran through the front door, Mom and Dad and Joey all yelled, "Close the door! Mama, quick, it's By. He froze up outside." No one seemed too impressed. I screamed, "Really? He's froze to the car. Help, he's crying." That shook them up. You could cut Byron's head off and he probably wouldn't cry. "Kenneth Bernard Watson, what on earth are you talking about?" "Mama, please, hurry up." Mom and Dad and Joey threw on some extra coats and followed me to the brown bomber. The fly was still stuck and buzzing. "Oh, Mama, help me. Get me off of here." "Oh, my Lord," Mama screamed, and I thought she was going to do one of those movie-style faints. She even put her hand over her forehead and staggered back a little bit. Joey, of course, started crying right along with Byron. Dad was doing his best not to explode laughing. Big puffs of smoke were coming out of his nose and mouth as he tried to squeeze his laughs down. Finally, he put his head on his arms and leaned against the car's hood and howled. "Byron!" Mama said, gently wiping tears off his cheeks with the end of her scarf. "It's okay, sweetheart. How'd this happen?" She sounded like she was going to be crying in a minute herself. Dad raised his head and said, "Why are you asking how it happened? Can't you tell, Willona? This little knucklehead was kissing his reflection in the mirror and got his lip stuck." Dad took a real deep breath. Is your tongue stuck too?" "No, quit teasing. Dad, help." Well, at least the boy hadn't gotten too passionate with himself. Dad thought that was hilarious and put his head back on his arms. Mama didn't see anything funny. "Daniel Watson, what are we going to do? What do you all do when this happens up here?" Mama started talking Southern style when she got worried. Instead of saying here, she'd say here. Instead of saying you all, she said y'all. Dad stopped laughing enough to say, "Willona, I've lived in Flint all my life, 35 years, and I swear this is the first time I've ever seen anyone with their lips frozen to a mirror. Honey, I don't know what to do. Wait till he thaws out?" "Pull him off, Dad," I suggested. Byron went nuts. He started banging his hands on the brown bomber's doors again and mumbling, "No, no, no, Mama, don't let him." Joey blubbered out, "This is just like that horrible story Kenny read me about that guy Narcissi who stared at himself so long he forgot to eat and starved to death. Mama, please save him." She went over and hugged her arms around stupid Byron's waist. Mama asked Dad, "What about hot water? Couldn't we pour enough hot water on the mirror so it would warm up and he could get off?" She kept wiping tears off By's cheeks and said, "Don't you worry, baby. We're going to get you off of this." But her voice was so shaky and southern that I wondered if we'd been driving around in the summer with a skeleton dangling from the outside of a mirror by its lips. Dad said, "I don't know. Pouring water on him might be the worst thing to do, but it may be our only chance. Why don't you go get some hot tap water and I'll stay to wipe his cheeks?" Joey told By, "Don't worry, we'll be right back." She stood on her tiptoes and gave By a kiss, and then she and Mama ran inside. Dad cracked up all over again. "Well, lover boy, I guess this means no one can call you Hot Lips, can they?" Dad was killing himself. "Or the last of the red hot lovers either, huh?" He tugged on Byron's ear a little, pulling his face back. By went nuts again. "Don't do that, Mama, Mama, please help. Keep gonna Mama Hoey." "I guess that's not going to work, is it?" Every time he wiped away the tears and the little mustache of booger on Byron's lips, Dad couldn't help laughing, until a little river of tears was coming out of his eyes, too. Dad tried to straighten his face out when Mama and Joey came running back with a steaming glass of hot water, but the tears were still running down his cheeks. Mama tried to pour hot water on the mirror, but her hands were shaking so much she was splashing it all over the place. Dad tried too, but he couldn't look at Byron without laughing and shaking. That meant I had to do it. I knew that if my lips were frozen on something and everybody was shaking so much to pour water on them, except for Byron, he'd come do some real cruel stuff to me. He probably would have accidentally splashed my eyes until they were frozen open, or put water in my ears until I couldn't hear anything. But not me. I gently poured a little stream of water over the mirror. Dad was right. This was the worst thing we could do. That water made a crackling sound and froze solid as soon as it touched the mirror and By's lips. Maybe By's mouth was frozen, but his hands sure weren't. He had popped me right in the forehead hard. I hate to say it, but I started crying too. It's no wonder the neighbors called us the weird Watsons behind our backs. There we were, all 5 of us, standing around a car with the temperature about 1,000,000 degrees below zero, and each and every one of us crying. "Tom, I yelled. "Daniel Watson, what are we going to do?" Mama went nuts. "You got to get this boy to the hospital. My baby's going to die." Dad tried to look serious real quick. "Willona, how far do you think I'd get driving down the street with this little clown attached to the mirror? What am I supposed to do? Have him run beside the car all the way down to the emergency room?" Mama looked real close at By's mouth. closed her eyes for a second like she was praying, and finally said, Daniel, you get in there and call the hospital and see what they say we should do. Joey and Kenny, go with your daddy. Dad and Joey went crying into the house. I stayed by the brown bomber. I figured Mama was clearing everybody out for something. Byron did too and looked at Mama in a real nervous way. Mama put her scarf around Byron's face and said, Sweetheart, you know we're going to do something. I'm going to try to warm your face up a little. Just relax. Oh, okay, Mama. You know I love you and I wouldn't do anything to hurt you, right? If Mama was trying to make Byron relax, she wasn't doing a real good job at it. All this talk about love and not getting hurt was making him real nervous. What are you going to do, huh? Do hurt me? Help! Mama moved the scarf away and put one hand on Byron's chin and the other one on his forehead. No, help me, Kevin! Mama gave Byron's head a good hard snatch, and my eyes automatically shut, my hands automatically flew up to cover my ears, and my mouth automatically flew open and screamed, Yow! I didn't see it, but I bet Byron's lips stretched a mile before they finally let off that mirror. I bet his lips looked like a giant rubber band before they snapped away from that glass. I didn't hear it, but I bet Byron's lips made a sound like a giant piece of paper being ripped in half. When I opened my eyes, Byron was running to the house with his hands over his mouth and Mama following right behind him. I ran over to the mirror to see how much of Byron's mouth was still stuck there. The dirty dogs let Byron get away with not doing this share of the windows, and I had to do the whole car myself. When we were finally going to Aunt Cindy's house, I decided to pay Byron back by punching me in the forehead and getting out of doing his part of the window scraping. Joey was sitting between us, so I felt kind of safe. I said to her loud, Joetta, guess what? I'm thinking about writing my own comic book. What about? Well, it's going to be about this real mean criminal who had a terrible accident that turns him into a superhero. Joey knew I was going to tease Byron, so she sat there looking like she'd be careful what I said. Finally, I asked her, Do you want to know what I'm going to call this new superhero? What? I'm going to call him Lipless Wonder. All he does is beat up superheroes smaller than him, and the only thing afraid of is a cold mirror. All the weird Watsons except Byron cracked up. Mama's hand even covered her mouth. I was the only one who saw Byron flip me a dirty finger sign and try to whisper about smearing all the Vaseline Mama had put on his lips. You wait, I'm going to kick your little behind. Then he made his eyes go crossed, which was his favorite way of teasing me, but I didn't care. I knew who had won this time.